Hey everyone, Dave here, OSGTTV. Hope everyone's having an awesome day. Thanks for joining us. We were going through our retro mini collection the other day, and we got quite the collection going since we started purchasing some of these years ago. We're up to maybe 10 or a dozen devices, and I think it's time that we take some of these things and talk about them a little more and how relevant are they still in 2026, 2027, moving forward. Are they worth just collecting? Are they worth replacing anything in your gaming collection? So on and so forth. So let's take a few minutes on each one of these. Maybe we'll break these down into a series of videos, maybe focus on 2 or 3 of them at a time. But let's talk about them. Let's talk about the features and what they can do, what they can't do, and see if they're still worth it today. If this is your first time here, welcome to the show. My name is Dave, and OSGTTV. We also have a sister channel over on Twitch TV where we do a lot of more day-to-day streaming. We play retro games over there from these mini systems. We play some virtual pinball. We do current gen systems and arcade and all kinds of things like that. So if you like chill streams, make sure to throw us a follow over there. If you like the retro content over here, make sure to throw us a subscribe on YouTube, and hope to see you around. Let's get things started.
Doors slide open, air smells like dust and sugar, flicker in the corner calling out my name. Old high score list, my initials halfway down it, pockets heavy jangling like I never changed. Retro to this day, stacking quarters just to stay, wasting all my daylight, chasing pixels, chasing fate. Retro to this day, I grew up, but I remain right here in the glow. Retro to this day.
All right, welcome back. I think it's only fitting that we start this episode by talking about the golden trio of consoles, of mini consoles. And you guessed it, we're going to start out here with the Nintendo Classic. This is the mini version of the NES. This was released back in 2016 originally, and had a re-release 2 years later in 2018. And both of them were hot sellers, going off the shelf like hotcakes. 2017 came around, and Nintendo doubled down on the mini experience and released for us the Super Nintendo Classic. Once again, sold like hotcakes, flew off the shelves, hard to find. Then to follow up in 2019, Sega responded with a mini console, the Genesis. This is the first iteration of mini Genesis consoles by Sega, and 2019 for this one. So each of these has some pros and cons to them, and we'll go back to the NES and talk about that. Let's start with the controllers. All right, let's start talking about these controllers. All of them are awesome quality build controllers, just like you remember from back in the day. If we start with the NES Classic controller, the only bad thing about this is the cord is only like 1.5 feet long. It's kind of horrible. You can get extensions for it, but do you really want to? I don't know. The end of the controller plugs in with the connector that you would find on the Wii, bottom of the Wii controller. So it's not a standard USB connector that you can just plug into your PC and use for emulation or anything like that. The Super Nintendo controller is pretty much the same thing. Looks and feels, controls just like the real thing from back in the day. It does have a longer power cord to it, but also has the connector that goes in the bottom of your Wii controller. The good thing about those two systems, even though the connectors are unique to the systems, is that you can actually take a Wii Classic controller, which is a little more sturdy feel. The D-pad, the buttons, the triggers on top, it feels more like a current gen controller to use. These also have the same type of adapters, and you can plug these into your minis and actually use those as your controllers, or a second controller, which is really nice. The Genesis controller, 3-button controller by Sega, has a super long cord on it, probably about 5 or 6 feet, and actually does connect via USB, so you can actually plug it into your computer and use it for emulation and other things like that, which is really nice. So that's a quick over on all the controllers for all 3 systems. All really good builds. They all feel good, and they are all awesome to use. All right, let's talk about the form of the actual consoles themselves. We are re-recording this part because we did the first time with no volume, and it wasn't a lot of fun to watch with no volume. Anyway, the Nintendo NES Classic looks and is shaped just like the original console you know and love. It does have 5-volt power on the back and HDMI. It's got the joystick ports in the front that we talked about just before. Power and reset button. It does not flip open. You can't put any fake little cartridges in or anything like that. So kind of what you see is what you get, which is a pretty nice little design system. Super Nintendo Classic, a little bit different. The power button does actually work, and you can use the reset button to reset your system. On the back, it does have HDMI and the 5-volt power once again. And the only weird thing about this system is that to get to the joystick ports, you have to flip open a small plastic cover on the front, because we said earlier how there are custom joystick gamepad ports for this thing. So that's what you have to do to get your gamepads plugged in. Otherwise, it looks identical to the Super Nintendo that you know and love. Third one, Sega Genesis. This one, you can tell they went a little above and beyond past Nintendo. On the back, you have your HDMI, your 5-volt power, just like normal. You have your toggle power switch on and off. You have a reset button. But then you also have a sliding volume control. It does not do anything with the volume. It's just there for looks. But it's cool that it slides nonetheless. Same with the little slot at the top. It actually is spring-loaded, and it looks like it would accept a cartridge. Just spoiler warning, it doesn't. It's a mini system. It's just there for aesthetics. But if you had a 3D printer and some cool models to print of cartridges, you could actually have some little cartridges sitting inside the mini system if you want. So kind of nice that Sega went above and beyond for some of those features on there. All right, let's go talk about some software. All right, circling back around to the NES Classic. As far as software goes, this thing comes shipped with 30 titles on it. Nintendo did a good job of giving us AAA games on this thing, or some of the games that made the system popular. They didn't give us a bunch of third-party games that no one cares about, so that's kind of nice. Another feature of the NES Classic is you can't add more games out of the box, but it does have an option if you want to look into the modding scene to modify the system software on here, and you can actually run a whole bunch of different emulators on here for different systems, from Master Systems to Sega to Super Nintendo, yada yada yada. MAME, and you can get a lot of things loaded on here. The storage to hold games on here is very small, so you will need to use a solution that has an external USB drive to hold even more data on it if you want to load more than just, say, like all of your NES library on here. But it does, through modding, have the capability of adding more games to this. So let's go look at the Super Nintendo controller system. All right, let's talk about the system software for the Super Nintendo Classic system. This one comes packed with 21 games, a little less than the NES, but Nintendo does not disappoint with the games on this system either. You got a lot of favorites on here, including some Zelda, including some Donkey Kong Country, Star Fox 2 is included on here, so no lack of games once again. You can't add your own games to it right out of the box, but if you do use a modding process, you can put a Hackchi version on here that will allow you to play other Super Nintendo games, or you can load your NES library on here, Sega, Master System, a whole bunch of different things on here, so you can make it more than what it is out of the box. But once again, limited storage on this. You will not fit your entire Super Nintendo library on this thing. You will need like an external USB to piggyback off of to hold some of your files. So, but it is possible. You can use this to emulate a lot of other systems. And let's go once again talk about the Genesis system then. So Genesis, same thing. Genesis comes packed with the most games of all systems, 40 games, and then they advertise plus 2 bonus games, so might as well just call it 42 games. But same thing, no way to easily just add more games to this, but through the power of modding on the Genesis Mini 1 model, you can go and add more games on there, just like the Super Nintendo, just like the NES Classic, and you know, once again, storage space is limited just like the Super Nintendo, and the files get a little bigger with the newer systems that you have, so you probably will need a USB storage to go along with this to store your games. All right, let's talk about availability, pricing, and some final thoughts here to wrap this up. Pricing, or let's talk availability. These things have been out for 7+ years, and it's going to be hard to find them. eBay is going to be your friend. If you're doing open box, you'll probably be looking at high 40s or 50s to like $80 for an open box item of any one of these three. If you want new inbox, the Nintendo ones are going to be a little bit cheaper, probably in the 90 to 120, 130 range. And the Sega Genesis, and you want like the Model 1 if you want to do the modding, that system's going to be probably a little higher box new, you know, maybe in the 130 to 170 range, maybe, I'm guessing. So awesome systems. I use them all the time. My original things are all packed away in the basement. I don't have the software clutter here. I've got all the software I need loaded on, available for these things. They plug in via HDMI to my computer, so I can just stream them really easy, or modern TVs. If I want to hook them up to like older CRTs, like in the back over there, there are adapters you can use for the video to downgrade HDMI to the composite connections and stuff like that. So there's a lot of options out there. And yeah, I love these things. Like I said, still use them to this day. It's 2026. I'll be using them in 2027. God willing that I'm still around. And, you know, we got a lot more consoles and retro computers to talk about. The mini ones that we talked about in the pictures at the beginning of the stream. And what we'll do is we'll make another video coming up. We'll choose another 3 and talk about those 3 and how practical they are and some of their features and benefits and downfalls, all that good stuff. So if you like this kind of stuff, make sure to throw us a follow here on YouTube. Don't forget to also stop by our Twitch channel of OSGTTV, where we do more day-to-day streaming over there. And I hope to see you there. All right, guys, have a great night. Talk to you later.
Doors slide open, air smells like dust and sugar.